Hey, what up, Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports. It's JJ.
And Mike. And this high school football preview podcast is brought to you by Naples Rib Company. Visit GazetteSports.com and click on their ad to find out how you could win a free banquet.
Utah, give me 2. We got 2 weeks of the regular season for local high school football left. Obviously, a full schedule this week and a few games that could set up some championship games and some, I guess you could almost call them playoff games in the final week of the regular season.
I think we've got a lot of teams that would consider this week the start of the playoffs because there's a lot of teams that want to be in real win-and-you're-in games next week, but they've obviously got to take care of business this Friday to get there.
We got to start with the game of the week, which is actually a non-league matchup at Veterans Memorial Stadium, 7:30 on Friday. It's Long Beach Poly and IMG Academy. Now, we could break this down and give you all of the crazy numbers from the undefeated IMG Academy, and the fact that they're number 2 ranked in the nation does, well, basically that. But, Mike, this is a really interesting situation where you've got a Long Beach Poly team taking on one of the best teams in the nation, but really these football players are different. Like, you look at a Poly team, public school, these kids are worried about different things on Friday than an IMG team that travels the nation. They went to that high school to play high school football. We live in a world here in the CIF Southern section where kids kind of aren't allowed to tell you why their family moved when they were juniors.
I would almost say that they went to that high school to play college football. I mean, it's just a weird situation where, in my opinion, okay, with all due respect to the people who put in the hard work at the IMG Academy, I'm one of the large group of people who's kind of grossed out by this whole thing.
We started it with the Finlay Prep in Vegas with the basketball.
But I just don't, to me, I just don't think I honestly don't think they should be allowed to compete with high schools. I think they should compete with junior colleges or it's not fair to see even a Bishop Gorman, right, which spends a ton of money, has unbelievable facilities, and draws kids from all over the West Coast. It still operates on a high school campus where there are regular classes, and it was not built for sports. In fact, for decades, their sports programs weren't nearly as relevant as they are now, right? So to me, I don't know. It's like playing the Harlem Globetrotters or something. You know what I mean? And to me, no matchup better represents that shift than Long Beach Poly. Started football team in 1908. Public school, neighborhood school, right? Built from the ground up versus, and everyone talked about that Poly De La Salle game in 01 as that was sort of when you saw old school versus new school football, and now it's sort of the same kind of a thing where it's like, what is this thing? And why are they ranked with regular high school programs, when you look at the stuff they've got going. But you mentioned the numbers. I do just want to throw out there, you consider and remember what a big deal Juju Smith or Biggie Marshall or Jack Jones were at Long Beach Poly because they were all Americans. Well, this one school, IMG Academy, which, by the way, has possibly the worst mascot of all time in the Ascenders.
The Ascenders, ladies and gentlemen.
The IMG Academy has 10 of the 90 Under Armour All-Americans are from one high school. So if I've had a ton of Poly people like, do we have a shot? What's going on? All I would say is, you remember what a big deal Juju was at your school? And they've got 10 guys like that. I won't personally ever have seen a high school team, if you want to call it that, with more talent than this one has. And certainly you take nothing away from the talent that they've got because they're unbelievable.
Oh, without question, Poly going to try to not be the Washington Generals on Friday night, even though they will be wearing that famous green. A couple of players to watch for IMG, defensive lineman Teron Vincent and top-ranked receiver Brian Hightower. Hightower, with over 30 major universities interested in his services, is one of 4 IMG receivers with 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, they do have the high-end guys, the guys you recognize, the guys on all the lists, but then they've also got some other dudes that you've never even heard of who are just going to be amazing. I do have to mention also,
I'm really grumpy about it, JJ.
I can tell.
I really don't want to go cover that football game.
We have seen some talent at Veterans Memorial Stadium this year. Oh my. We've seen Bosco. We've seen Bishop Gorman. Now we will see IMG Academy. Goodness.
It's a great argument for upgrading your facilities. And you've got a nice stadium like that, a nice new field, and you get to have, between Bosco, Poly, IMG, and Bishop Gorman, I think you've got over 60 future college football players in that one stadium this year. It's pretty nuts.
Look, much like people who play Poly in the Moore League talk about the Poly game, it doesn't define our season. I feel like that's the attitude Poly has to take into this game, especially because it's so close to the playoffs. You can't take a major ego hit, a major confidence hit this close to the playoffs because the Moore League schedule has done nothing but up the confidence of this Poly team, and rightfully so.
I think what's going to be interesting, JJ, is that Pauly has never had to say that. I mean, even in big games that they, last year's De La Salle game, right? They were really not favored at all, obviously, going into that game. But there's still an expectation that you're going to win within the team and within the fan base. And I think this is the first time where, I've had to tell people, it's like you really need to decide ahead of time what your expectations are for this game, because the chances that you're going to come out and win are probably about as low as any Pauly team has gone into a game with. It doesn't mean you're not going to come out and play hard, but that is not a school that's good at losing games in a big way. You know what I mean? And so that to me is, I completely agree with you what you just said. This is not the season. The season is the playoffs, and you're looking good for that. You got one more game against Millikin to get healthy before the playoffs start. And I also think it's really good to be sort of battle-tested, to see a team with a sharper edge than you've had to see, as they've been blowing out all the more league teams, obviously. But, I don't know, man. We really could see just about anything, because, I was at that 56-0 in Arbonne game. That was ugly. I mean, it's just not... It's not in their mindset over there to be like, well, but this isn't the season. They've always had that game. They've always had the nationally televised game until recently, obviously, as that national prestige locally is kind of shifted to Bosco. So I'll be curious to see how the whole game goes. But it's definitely a different world for Long Beach Poly football than it was for much of the last century.
Yeah, not too long ago. That's 7:30, Veterans Memorial Stadium on the campus of LBCC, Long Beach Poly, and IMG Academy. Obviously, you will find all of the coverage during and after right here at GazetteSports.com and the Press Telegram. We need to go to the San Gabriel Valley League right now, because that is probably the most interesting league race.
And we knew that would be that. We knew that would be the case all year, because
it always is.
La Mirada in the Burbs and Poly in the Moore League were sort of foregone conclusions. So
So this week you've got Gar at Downey, Linwood at Paramount, and Dominguez at Warren. Now, you look at the standings of the SGVL right now, and you can see that Downey and Paramount are set up for a championship game next week at Paramount. First things first, Downey has to beat Gar at home, and Paramount has to beat Linwood at home. Now, Downey is on a 6-game winning streak right now. They're 7-1 overall, and they've scored over 35 points in the last 5 games. Gar, behind their running attack, and Latrell Stearns, their star senior, just recently lost. They're 7-1. They're having their best season since, 9 years ago. So, you've got the team that's been involved in all of these SGVL championships in Downey, and then you've got the up-and-comers. Gar has to feel like their back's up against the wall. That's crazy to say about a 7-1 team. They are 2-1 right now in the SGVL. But with this loss, and let's say maybe they lose next week to Dominguez, it's possible that they lose their playoff spot after starting the season 6-0. That's crazy.
It is. There's a lot of different philosophies we always talk about in scheduling your non-league games, and I think it's objectively better to be 5-0, and feeling confident and good. But it is, as we saw this with Linwood last year, did great in the non-league, and then came in and kind of ran into a bit of a wall in league. And it is sort of a weird feeling. I'm looking forward to see what Amari DeMercado can do from Downey, because he's been, you and I haven't really seen him much. But he's obviously been one of the more electric guys in our area.
Yeah, he's averaging 133 yards a game.
Yeah, he's also had some 5 touchdowns, some crazy stat lines. So I know he'll be hungry to get out there and get it done. Also, 2 teams that are ranked in the CIF. Downey is now up to number 5 in Division 4 and trying to solidify that as they get ready to try and make a playoff push.
Yeah, Gladiators are number 10 in Division 10. Now we go over to Paramount, where a Pirates win over Linwood sets up that game I just mentioned against Downey. Paramount's on a 4-game winning streak, and they've really gotten something going with their rushing attack and their running back Al Fisher. This is obviously the week and the month where we just start talking about rushing attacks, because that's when you know a team is ready for the postseason, is when the rushing attack is clicking. The Pirates are number 9 right now in Division 6, and I would predict that they would take down the 4-4 Linwood Knights and set up that game. I think we're all kind of predicting that Downey and Paramount come out of this winners, and then, ooh-wee, buddy, get ready.
Well, it's what you said. This is first things first week. You've got the same thing in the Moore League for the other playoff spot, the third playoff spot as well. So, and as a writer, you obviously never root in either direction, but you certainly want to see some drama next week.
You mentioned it. Let's go to the Moore League, where Compton is at Wilson, Milliken is at Jordan, and Cabrillo is at Lakewood. But it is the Jordan and Lakewood games that are going to decide what we're looking at next week.
Well, when everyone asked us before the season started what we thought was going to happen, we said Poly looks like a clear number 1, Wilson looks like a clear number 2, and it's valuable to a league to have that, because then you have someone else that's sort of set up better, especially under the new system for a playoff run. But then we were like, third place? I really don't know, man. It's wide open.
The coaches were saying the same thing.
Right, and it's sort of shaken down to, from what we've seen, Jordan and Lakewood look like the 2 strongest programs.
Which was the same situation last year. Obviously, the Poly forfeits and the envelope draws.
Right.
But last game of the season last year, Jordan at Lakewood decided who got the automatic bid.
So, and it kind of looks like it's going to be that way as well. However, if you look at these 2 matchups, there are things that could pose both of these teams problems. Jordan is playing Milliken. Now, Jordan lost 50-0 to Wilson. Milliken lost 50-28. We know that Milliken's offense can put up points, so the question is going to be whether Jordan can score with them and get them off the field. Milliken only 1-7, but still dangerous. Whereas Lakewood hosting Cabrillo, Lakewood shown that in that 80-64 win over Compton, sometimes they are not so good at getting teams off the field, and Cabrillo's got a couple of guys who can definitely score and put points up. So I think those are sort of the traps for those 2 teams. Wilson, I don't think will have too much to worry about with Compton. They're probably more so looking forward to the Hall of Fame ceremony at halftime that we're really bummed to miss, by the way, because Chase DeYoung, Kelly Wolliver, some of the people going into the Hall of Fame over there are among our favorite kids we've ever gotten to cover. So that'll be a fun night for the Bruins, and if all those results sort of hold up, we will go into that week with Poly number 1, Wilson number 2, and then Jordan v. Lakewood in a knockdown drag-out for that final playoff spot.
Wolliver and DeYoung, also some of the kids we first covered, so now we feel old when people we covered are going into Hall of Fames.
I know, Chase is still a kid to me.
Yeah,
that's hard to believe.
Let's wait on these a little bit, huh? We got to touch on the Suburban League as well. Mike mentioned it earlier. La Mirada, obviously the class there. They are number 1 in their division. Mayfair, a solid second, taking on Glenn. Should win that game to then set up yet another Suburban League Championship game against La Mirada next week. But way more interestingly, Norwalk and Artesia, not one anyone had circled on the calendar before the season.
When was the last time Norwalk-Artesia was a game that we were like, oh, we have to send somebody to that
right?
game? Yeah, for sure.
Right? They are both.
Kudos to Norwalk for being on the come-up, and to our guy Joe Beach at Artesia for getting them together this year, for sure. That's pretty cool.
Both with 2 losses in league, so a win here gets them in sole possession of 3rd place in the Suburban League, and that pretty much guarantees you a trip to the playoffs. Norwalk, a very balanced rushing attack with 6 guys over 30 carries this season, and Artesia's Jordan Benoit leading a pretty good Pioneers rushing attack as well. Benoit's got 21 touchdowns. Cerritos at Bellflower is the other game in that Suburban League, but again, talking about running games because it's that time of year.
Yeah, well, the clouds are overhead of us as we're recording right now, so I think it's definitely that time of year. My kid's got his Halloween costume. We bought the candy, which means it's time to stop throwing the ball.
Other teams in action in the local area. Valley Christian having a cool little event at their place. It's law enforcement and first responders night at Valley Christian High School. The Crusaders are 2-0 right now. First place in the Olympic League, trying to stay there against Heritage Christian, who is 5-3 overall. If you are a first responder or a law enforcement and have the proper identification, you get free admission +1 to this game on Friday night at Valley Christian, and there's also going to be a tribute at halftime and throughout the games. And Valley Christian's got one of the best tri-tip sandwiches in the local area, and I can personally attest to that. Myself and our freelance writer, Art Thompson III, can attest to how good those sandwiches are.
Art's blood is like 30% tri-tip au jus at this point.
They love Art over there, man. They love Art. And hey, I love watching that Valley Christian team play because, speaking of running game, they've also got the defense to match. And if they stay healthy, they could definitely make some noise in their division as well. Los Alamitos is going to be at Huntington Beach, where the Griffins, still licking their wounds from that disappointing loss to Edison, are still only second place in the Sunset League and can stay there with a win and then take on the other second place team, Newport Harbor, next week.
They've got a 3-team logjam with 1 loss right now, and Los Al's playing one of those teams is playing another one of those teams in the Oilers, as you mentioned. So again, a take care of your business week, because if you do, then you can play next week for who really gets the 2 seed.
And the Oilers are no pushover. We watched them take Wilson out earlier this year. To the lower divisions, St. Anthony is at Mary Star of the Sea. The Saints are number 7 in Division 10 after their statement win against previously undefeated St. Genevieve last week. St. Anthony defense creating a bunch of turnovers, 2 touchdowns and a safety last week.
They really took it to the Vive, Jage.
Oh, yeah, they did. The Mary Star of the Sea, 6-2, so not a pushover there either. Another big test for St. Anthony.
But at this point, you kind of feel like the Saints found their stride, and I think that physicality of that defense has proven to be kind of what separates them from the other teams in their league, and maybe we'll find out the other teams in their playoff division because they are looking for a playoff run.
And all due respect to that playoff division, Mario Morales, head coach over there at St. Anthony, has those Saints playing with Pac-5 intensity. You know, he coached at Wilson, and he took what he coached at Wilson
bodies,
but they're not Pac-5 bodies,
but Pac-5 intensity. I agree.
It is, man. They run around the field unlike most teams that we see them play in that division.
For sure. Well, they're out there looking to hit. You don't usually see that in Division 10. We've seen a lot of we've even seen some great St. Anthony teams that made it to the semifinals who did not want to hit the way this team does.
Yep. Rancho Dominguez Prep looking for another win. They got their win on the road. Trinity Classical Academy is at Fireball, where the Falcons are still looking for their first win. And our guys, the Lancers of Avalon, ruling Catalina as if it were their own island, because it kind of is. 8-man powerhouse Avalon, 7-0, 2-0, are the only undefeated team in the local area, and they're going to try to finish off their regular season against a Lutheran team that is only 2-6. Avalon averaging like over 50 points per game this season.
They also haven't lost a game of any kind since 2014 because they went undefeated last year, and I would point out they only the year before lost a playoff game, so I think it's been 3 or 4 years since they lost a regular season game.
If you haven't seen 8-man football, and you're on Catalina at any point in the fall, you have got to see these Avalon Lancers. That's it. Those are the local high school football games for this week. And next week, we will find out where everyone is going to play their first round playoff games.
We'd like to thank all of our sponsors, once again, including Naples Rib Company. Be sure to visit GazetteSports.com and click on their ad to find out how you could win a free banquet. There's plenty of places we like to eat on 2nd Street. One of those great places to eat is Papa Lucci's, Time Place on the west end of 2nd. And, of course, make sure you're voting for the local athletes in the SoCal Prep Legends team and player awards every week over at their website. We link that up on our Twitter and our Facebook each week. And,
yeah, speaking of the Twitter, man, you can follow all the scores on Friday night through our Twitter. And then after the game, we'll put up some single-player highlights and have highlight videos, photo galleries, and full game recaps with statistics and everything after those games. And on Saturday, you come back. We will lace your cleats up and give you everything you need to know before the final week of the regular season.